The tipping point, how little things can make a big difference. Malcolm Gladwell. The stickiness factor 3. This was the legacy of Sesame Street. If you paid careful attention to the structure and format of your material, you could dramatically enhance stickiness. Now, is it possible to make a show even stickier than Sesame Street? This was what three young television producers at the Nickelodeon network in Manhattan asked themselves in the mid-1990s. It was a reasonable question. Sesame Street, after all, Sesame Street was a product of the 1960s, and in the intervening 3 decades, major stride has been made in understanding how children's mind works. One of the Nickelodeon producers, Todd Kessler, had actually worked on Sesame Street and left the show dissatisfied. He didn't like the fast-paced magazine format of the show. I love Sesame Street, he said, but I always believed that kids didn't have short attention span, and they could easily sit still for half an hour. He found traditional children's television too static because the audience is not all the verbal or even pre-verbal. It's important to tell the story visually, he went on. It's a visual medium, and to make it sink in, to make it powerful, you've got to make use of them. There is so much children's television that's all talk. The audience has a hard time keeping up with what? Kessler's colleague, Trace Santomer, grew up on Sesame Street and had similar misgivings. We wanted to learn from Sesame Street and take it one step further. Santomero said, TV is a great medium for education, but people up until now haven't explored the potential of it. They've been using it in a rote way. I believe we could turn that around. What they came up with is a show called Blue's Clue. It's half an hour, not an hour. It doesn't have an ensemble cast. It has just one live actor, Steve, a flash-faced man in his early 20s in khakis and rugby shirt who acted as the show host. Instead of a varied magazine format, each episode follows a single storyline. The exploit of an animated dog by the name of Blue. It has a flat, two-dimensional feel, more like a video version of a picture book than a television show. The pace is deliberate. The script is punctuated with excruciatingly long pause. There is none of the humor or wordplay or cleverness that characterize Sesame Street. One of the animated characters on the show, a mailbox, is called Mailbox. Two other regular characters, a shovel and a pail, are called Shovel and Pail. The Blue, of course, the show's star, is blue because he's the color blue. It's difficult as an adult to watch Blue's Clue and not wonder how this show could ever represent improvement over Sesame Street. And yet it does. Within months of its debut in 1996, Blue's Clue was trouncing Sesame Street in the rating. When the distractor test scored higher than its rival in capturing children's attention, Jennings Variant, an educational researcher at the University of Alabama, conducted a study of 120 children comparing the performance of regular blue clues watcher of other educational shows of a series of cognitive tests. After 6 months, we began to get very big difference, Bryant said. By almost all of our measure of flexible thinking and problem solving, we had statistically significant differences. If there were 60 items on the test, you might find that the blue clues watcher were correctly identifying 50 of them, and the control group was identifying 35. Blue's Clue may be one of the stickiest television shows ever made. How is it that such an unreprocessing show is even stickier than Sesame Street? The answer is that Sesame Street, as good as it is, has a number of subtle but not insignificant limitations. Consider, for example, the problem created by the show's insistence of being clever. From the beginning, Sesame Street was intended to appeal to both children and adults. The idea was that one of the big obstacles facing children, particularly children from lower income families, was that their parents didn't encourage or participate in their education. Sesame Street creators wanted a show that mothers would watch along with their children. That's why the show is loaded with so many adult elements. The constant funning and pop culture references like Monster Piece, Shooter, or the Samuel Beckett parody, Waiting for Elmo. The show's head writer, Roe Beggar, says that the reason he applied for a job at Sesame Street was because of a cameo sketch he saw while watching the show with his son in 1979. It was one of those crazy fairy tales. They were looking for a princess in distress. Camille ran out to this female moped princess and said, and here Beggar did a pitch perfect Camille. Excuse me, are you a female princess in distress? And she said, what does this look like? A pantsuit? I remember thinking, that's so great. I have to work there. The problem is preschooler don't get this kind of joke, and the presence of the humor, like the elaborate pun on distress, can serve as a distraction. There is a good example of this in an episode of Sesame Street called Roy that ran to Christmas Eve in 1997. The episode opened with Big Bird running into a mail carrier who has never been on Sesame Street before. The mail carrier hands Big Bird a package, and Big Bird is immediately puzzled. If this is the first time you have ever been here, he asks, how did you know I was a Big Bird? Mail carrier, well, you have to admit, it's easy to figure out. Just search broadly a big bird. BB. It is. Look at himself. Oh, I see. The package is for big bird. And I'm a big bird. I forget sometimes. I'm just what my name said. Big bird is a big bird. Big bird became sad. He realized that everyone else has a name like Oscar and Snoopy, but he has only a description. He asks the mail carrier what her name is. She says Imogen. BB. Gee, that's a nice name. Looking at the camera, wistfully, I wish I had a real name like that, instead of one of just say what I am, as if I were an apple or a chair or something. Thereupon begins a search by Big Bird for a new name. With the help of Snoopy, he canvassed Sesame Street. For suggestion, Jackie Bill, Obama, Larry, Sammy, Elbella, Jim, Napoleon, Lenson, Lucky, before settling on Roy. But then, when everyone starts to call him by his new name, Big Bird realized that he doesn't like it at all. After all, somehow it doesn't seem right, he said. I think I made a big mistake. He switched back. Even if Big Bird isn't a regular name, he concluded, it's my name, and I like the way all my friends say it. This was, at least on the surface, the excellent episode. The premise is challenging and conceptual, but fascinating. It deals candidly with emotion, and unlike other children's shows, tells children that it's okay not to be happy all of the time. Most of all, it's funny. It sounds like it should be a winner, right? Along, the Roy show was tested by Sesame Street research staff and members were very disappointing. The first segment involving Snoopy and Big Bird did well, as you would expect. The viewers were curious. Then things began to fall apart. By the second of the street scene, attention dropped to 8%. By the third, 78%. By the fourth, 40%. Then 50, then 20. After viewing the show, the kids were quizzed on what they had seen. They asked very specific questions and were looking for clear answers. Rosemary Toglio, Sesame Street research had said, what was the show about? 60% knew. What did Big Bird want to do? 53% knew. What was Big Bird's new name? 20% knew. How did Big Bird feel at the end? 50% knew. By comparison, another of the show tested by Sesame Street at the very same time recorded 90% plus correct answers on the post-show quiz. The show simply wasn't making any impression. It wasn't sticking. Why did the show fail? The problem at root is with the premise of the show. The essential joke and Big Bird doesn't want to be known as a Big Bird. That's a kind of wordplay that preschooler simply doesn't understand. Preschoolers make a number of assumptions about words and their meaning as they acquire language. One of the most important of which is what psychologist Alan Markman calls the principle of mutual exclusivity. Simply put, this means that small children have difficulty believing that any one object can have two different names. The natural assumption of children, Markman argued, is that if an object or person is given a second label, then the label must refer to some secondary property or attribute of that object. You can see how useful this assumption is to a child faced with the extraordinary task of assigning a word to everything in the world. A child who learned that word elephant knows with absolutely certainty that it's something different from a dog. Which new word make a child's knowledge of the world more precise. Without mutual exclusivity, by contrast, if a child saw that elephant could simply be another label for dog, then which new word would make the word seem more complicated. Mutual exclusivity also helped the child think clearly. Suppose, Markman writes, a child who already knows apple and read here someone refer to apple as round. By mutual exclusivity, the child can eliminate the object of apple and its color red as the meaning of round and can try to analyze the object for some other property to label.